Hello, Scream Demons. Welcome to the Screams from the Basement podcast with Sam and Casey. I am one of your co-hosts. I am Casey. Join with me, Sam Lenz.
Hey, everybody. How's it going? How's it going,
Hey,
Casey?
It's going good, Sam. It's going very good. I'm excited. We're here with another interview. We're talking to filmmaker, the director of Bad CGI Gator. We are so pumped to talk about this movie. We had an absolute blast watching this movie on the Full Moon Features app, which it is streaming on right now. We're welcoming filmmaker Danny Draven. Danny, welcome to the show.
Hey guys. Hey Casey and Sam. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Yes,
thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, thank you for coming on and talking about.
My pleasure.
Talking about the movie, and we're gonna talk about other stuff that you've worked on.
Sure. Yeah, it makes it sound like the only movie I ever made was Bad CGI Gator.
Oh no, we've got
last.
questions about other ones too.
Yeah,
no, don't say this will be the last, because we want more. Not just from Bad CGI Gator. We have questions about all the other stuff that you've worked on too, and we want more from you. So
sure.
Don't tease us that you're done. We want you to keep going.
I'm just playing.
Don't go Tarantino on us, man.
Yeah. So
all right.
The question I usually start off with when we have filmmakers on and we're talking about their newest work is, what is the plot of the movie? What's Bad CGI Gator about? The difference here is, I think for us especially, and people listening, you look at the title of a movie called Bad CGI Gator, you know what that movie's about. So I want to hear about your first interaction with this movie and how this was pitched to you. Was it pitched from Charlie at Full Moon? Did he have a poster for you? Was it an idea of yours? How the heck did this movie just come about?
Well, every movie that I've ever made that has always been, particularly with Full Moon, it's always been pretty much a title or a piece of art or some ridiculous concept. And several of them I said no way and hung up the phone. and then I ended up making it. Weedjies, Halloweed Night was one of them, and ended up being one of my. It ended up being such a fun movie for me to make. But I remember when I first was offered, I was like, no fucking way, I'm not making this is crazy. Hung up the phone. Bad CGI Gator was kind of, I wouldn't say it was kind of a similar thing where it was kind of like, I don't know how Charlie have been friends for a long time, many years, over 20, and been making movies for a long time. So he has this idea and he's just like, dude, I got this idea. And I was like, what is it? About making a movie in Georgia. And I said, well, the title's called Bad CGI Gator. And the first thing came out of my mind was, what? I ain't gonna make I was like, I'm not gonna make a movie called Bad CGI Gator. You crazy? What do you think? And I was like, I don't know. Let me think about it. So I was like, click. And then it was kind of like, I don't know, man. I ain't gonna make a movie called Bad CGI Gator. I thought, well, what is it gonna be? What is this? I work on bad CGI movies for many years. Like, why on earth would we want to make a bad CGI? And then it kind of evolved into something that got a little funnier and funnier. And I like comedy, particularly horror comedy. And I was just kind of like, maybe we could make this kind of fun, because I didn't want to kind of throw it out at that point. So I was just like, and then we started, coming in with the idea of like it being shot. It was originally going to be shot in Georgia, 100%. And then we ended up shooting it in Cleveland, which makes no sense. The Gators there.
There's so many Gators in Cleveland. I don't know what you're talking
about. So I basically was like, no way, I'm not making this movie. And then it became like, well, let's talk about it. And then his son Zalman started coming up, we have these cool ideas, and then the concept came up with this. Okay, there's these Gen Zers and the thing, and it's a total like parody goof on these movies, which immediately it's like, okay, I like it. All right, let's do it. And then because I've edited so many of these things. I've edited big movies like this for Sci-Fi Channel and I Spy, all these big movies. I'm very familiar with how these movies are made on that level. So it was kind of that opportunity to like, hey, we could make this for like, you got to remember this is during a strike too. The actor strike was going on. So nobody's working. So it's kind of like, hey, let's make this movie where people aren't doing much and, we'll make it fun and give people something to do. And so it just kind of went from there. And Bad CGI Gator was created and partially in Georgia, but mostly in Cleveland, Ohio. Yeah. So yeah, I mean,
That's so cool.
again, it was spawned out. I mean, it was literally like, I mean, I wasn't sitting around thinking about like, hey, I'm going to make a movie called Bad CGI Gator. Okay,
Yeah.
I was not. It was literally a dude, let's talk, and there was a phone call, and it was like, dude, I got this idea, and blah, 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 and it was just like bad. It was just a title, is all it was, and I was just like, oh, okay, you know. And then no script, no treatment, nothing. It was a title, but generally the full moon stuff is like a title or I mean the movie I had, Weedjies, Halloweed Night wasn't called it was called just Halloweed Night. It was like a pumpkin with a face on it, and it was supposed to be something completely different, you know. And actually many of the movies that I've done for them were like that. Deathbed, Crit, all that stuff they were titles. Sometimes art, but sometimes both, you know. So yeah, that's how these things spawn sometimes, which isn't a bad thing, because you know, as a filmmaker and as somebody who makes these things for an audience, you know, the title and the artwork are extremely important. They should be one of the first things you figure out, particularly when you're making movies that are a little bit more on the exploitive type side of things, you know, where your hook and everything isn't a star, it's a concept. It's like a bad CGI Gator. That sounds interesting. Let's watch that. You know, so that's a little bit more important when you're making movies like this, especially for people, you know, when they're going through all these millions and millions of movies to watch, and then they come across something that is intriguing enough to click on it and hopefully stay with it and watch it.
So from your initial talk with Charlie to getting the script, about how long did that take? Because it was
2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Yeah, 2 weeks. It was a concept. It was written. The script was written in like 2 weeks. There were some notes. We were in production. The movie was out I shot it in September for 5 days, and then I think the post took about a month, maybe about 4 or 5 weeks, and it was out on Thanksgiving. It actually was done before that. It was actually supposed to come out on Halloween.
Oh, really?
But there was I don't know, something that another release and needed another week or whatever it was. I mean, you got to understand, this movie there's over 100 visual effects in this movie. It's not like a couple little lightning flashes and stuff. This is actually a 3D gator. It's actually it's not a stick-on gator that you just put in there. It's actually a 3D model, completely 3D. You can do whatever you want. It's just like a Sci-Fi Channel movie, or just like it's the same model that you would use in that sort of a situation. Fully textured, the lighting, when it's all that stuff has to be designed, implemented, composited. The lighting has to be correct with the scene. I mean, it's the full on 3D gator, you know. And it says bad CGI Gator, but honestly, the CGI, this is 90s CGI. So and that was what I said to our effects artist, Dave. I said, look, don't make it bad. Like, I don't want it to be like a cartoon that flies across the screen. I sent him an example of like Anaconda 3 or something like that, or one of these like Gator 3 movies or something. And I was like, you see that 1996, 97, 98-ish kind of thing? That's what the Gator should look like. So basically that's kind of what we got, roughly, you know.
Yeah.
And we did it a hell of a lot faster than they did, you know, because you're talking about, I shot this movie in August, the end of August.
Yeah,
literally,
crazy.
I was on set in August. So again, you know, I went out, you know, we shot it I shot it in 5 days, and you know, it was literally streaming by Thanksgiving. So
yeah, that's insane, especially for like you said, this gator. It's not bad CGI. It's not like actually this is the worst thing I've ever. It's not a JPEG on the screen. It's, like you said, there's still the 3D model that you guys worked with, where it's like, obviously that gator is not actually there, but in terms of the tone and the overall way you're presenting the gator, it's like, I believe in universe of bad CGI gator that gator is there. What was the process like for like the effects of the movie then? Did someone have to create the gator from scratch, or was it something that was already created and you guys modified it?
No, I mean it's again, like this, you know, I mean, I have a lot of background with working in, you know, with this, you know, with editing these kind of movies, particularly in you know, a Sci-Fi Channel movie I did called Ice Spiders, which is this big like spider movie that they did. That I edited out years ago, like 15, 20, I don't know. It's a long time ago. But things like that, you know, and you know, so anytime you're dealing with like a creature like this that isn't there, you know, you shoot it in a certain way. There's certain things that the effects artists need. I established what the gator would look like before we started shooting it. And I knew what I needed to get and so on and so forth. But yeah, I mean, the whole gator model was altered, and it was put on with like a rig, you know, so you can make it do different things, turn around. It's kind of like a puppet, you know. And
That's
then
awesome.
all that stuff needs to be you know, thought out and actually executed with the footage that we shot, the plates that we shot on set, and implemented very quickly, as you can see. I mean, it's not like one gator scene in the movie, and this thing is in there quite a bit, and he gets big, and you know, there's all kinds of ridiculous stuff that he does, which was intentional, you know, like ringing the doorbell or walking on his legs or goofing up in the air or flying around and all that kind of stuff. But all that stuff had to be animated, designed, lit, composited, just like any regular big budgeted movie that would use those kind of effects, you know. So yeah, I mean, you know.
Yeah. So when you're modifying, like you anthropomorphize the gator and have him do certain things, like, you know, he rings the doorbell, he knocks, he's like walking on two legs. My favorite scene is when he literally just like levitates up in the air and comes down on someone.
Oh,
like
sure.
That's like, to me, that's the money shot of the whole movie. I love it. Like,
That's actually my favorite. That's my favorite moment too. You can't really hear it as well because in the mix, but he actually looks up and he says, "Bro," and then it comes down. But it's a little buried there, but it was actually intentional when I didn't have the time to do some of the stuff I wanted to do with that one, but you know, I was going to have the camera like way up in the air, and it was going to like, I mean, there's all kinds of other things we were going to do with it, but it was fun to do. No, the whole like him going up in the air, and I remember but that was I knew he was going to do that when I shot it. That's how I wanted him to do it, and luckily our effects artist was able to, visual effects artist, because Dave was able to kind of make that happen. You know, even down to like when he gets swallowed, you actually see his belly, you know. I mean, it's very brief, but he's like this for a moment, and then they scream, and then it's like chomp, 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 and he goes back to his little deal. But I mean, you know, that stuff is again for people who don't know filmmaking and particularly visual effects, it's not stuff that you just hammer out in like an app or something. I mean, this is real visual effects work that we were doing here. And 4K, you know, it's all done. All this whole movie's done and delivered in 4K. So, it was a very time consuming process to do all of this, and particularly in the amount of time that we did it in. And you generally don't see that, because I mean, look at the movies like, you know, these big effects movies take years to do. And they don't, and I'm not so sure they look much better these days. So, but this, I mean, this movie's a parody. It's meant we're meant to we're poking fun at the whole visual effects ridiculousness of these goofy creature movies, which I particularly find. I don't watch them, but I don't particularly care for them. Edited plenty of them, you know, made a few, but you know, I mean, it's not really my cup of tea, I guess. But it's you know, it's fun to kind of poke fun at the genre. Horror is a genre that's fun to poke fun at. It should be poked fun at. Yeah, I mean, you know,
I'm curious then. What's something that you know that you're into in terms of watching films? I'm curious, like how you get involved with Full Moon, you know, based on your own likes. Is it are you a horror fan? Is that something you grew up with? Was it always like, I want to make horror movies, or was it, hey, I met Charlie and that's how I got wrapped up into this entire Full Moon world?
Well, I mean, I think people's tastes evolve as they get older, and then they open up to more things. What as a whole, yeah. I mean, I've always been a fan of genre of the genre of horror, sci-fi, full moon movies. So to say I'm not a fan of the genre, it's not. I mean, I am, but I'm fond of more of the older stuff. I'm a huge fan of the '80s stuff, so that's my era. So I'm a big fan of like '80s horror. And classic horror. But as far as like, do I like watch, like modern horror stuff? No, I don't. Not at all. 100%. Not at all.
Really?
I don't watch any of it. I really don't. You can tell by probably some of the posters on my wall the kind of movies I watch. I watch Western, King Kong, Weird Science. I mean, you could look around Alfred Hitchcock's. I mean, it's just those are the kind of movies I watch generally. But have I seen Terrifier, or have I seen Conjurings? Nope, none of them. I don't watch them. So.
Wow. Okay.
But that's just me. I could be.
Yeah.
I mean, I prefer movies that I like classics, so I don't really watch anything other than that stuff. So, but some of the horror films I do revisit every now and then. But I mean, you're talking. I mean, I work on this stuff every day, so it's not. With that said, this is what I do. So,
you're still watching it, but you're watching it for a different reason than just like enjoying it as a fan. Yeah.
I just remastered Seed People, all right. So,
that's awesome.
So I mean, it's like, do I sit around and watch it? No, but did I remaster it? Yeah. I took the, 35mm negative and we did, I have a post company. So we remastered a lot of those full moon movies that you see on Blu-ray, and
that's awesome.
That stuff all comes through me, and we do a lot of that stuff. So I see a lot of it. I fix a lot of it. So
that's awesome. So do I have you to thank for my Head of the Family Blu-ray? Is that what I'm hearing? Hell yeah! Well, thank you, because it's like one of the crown jewels of my movie collection.
All the Blu-rays for probably the last 15 to 20 years came through.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
And all the I would say 98% of the remastering came through us as well. So like, definitely Head of the Family, definitely Castle Freaks, Subspecies, all of that stuff. Personally too, I worked on all of them. So, all of that stuff. We went back to the 35mm negatives on that stuff, and
that's so cool.
Yeah, remastered them and did it. So yeah.
I'm curious, and what's the process of remastering like a 90s full moon movie that is shot on 35?
Well, anytime you're remastering anything, I mean, these movies were kind of released on VHS, maybe Laserdisc.
Yeah.
And they never really had a good release, and the masters are just like standard definition, so it's luckily they were shot on film. So you have an element that you can go back to, 35mm negative, and you can go back to, and you can rescan that element, and you get 4K or HD or whatever we're doing it for. And but you have that 35mm negative you can go back to, rescan it, brings it in beautifully. Generally, those movies were all full frame because they were that's just the format
intended
that we were on. They were
intended for VHS. Yep.
So when we go back and rescan them, it's all beautifully 16:9. It's recolor corrected. It's got the sound is enhanced a little bit. You can only do so much. The elements are old. But things like that, and then it gets re-released onto a new format, and you've probably never seen Head of the Family looking that good before. And, but a lot of that has to do with they were shot on film back in the day. That you can't do that with everything, though. I mean, some of the earlier stuff I shot on back in the day, went back in the shot on video stuff. Those were shot on video, and that's as good as they get. They were SD 720 by 480. Like there's nothing to go back to make it better. So they kind of are what they are. But luckily the older stuff you have negative to go to.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I think especially these days it's so important to have people restoring and remastering and just giving these movies physical releases, because these days it's just with everything going digital, there's no
Yeah.
guarantee anymore.
Yeah, and
And
then
so
I'm sure.
yeah.
And then they'll have to it'll probably 10 years from now we'll probably have to go back and do it all over again for some other format.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah,
24K movies coming out on.
well, there's HDR.
Yeah.
There's then next thing you know, it'll be like 12K, and then it's like, well, we got to go back. I mean, these things can only get so good. You can only scan them so high. 4K
Right.
from the 35 millimeter negative. 4K being kind of like it doesn't really get too much better than that. So
Right.
And these things are old, so there's scratches and there's things that we try to repair and whatnot. So it's a process. It's a process.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead, Sam.
I was gonna jump back to Weedjies Halloweed Night for a second, just
Sure.
because when we were talking about that earlier, you
I love
said
it. Yeah.
it changed from the initial concept, from the initial poster and the art. It was only called Halloweed Night at first. Can you take us through
Sure.
Full disclosure, I watched this today and prepped for this, and I just
Weedjies?
loved
You
it.
just watched Weedjies?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
man.
just watched Weedjies.
You
I don't know how.
you need to be like drinky when you watch Weedjies. That's like that. That's a total
or something else.
Well,
or something else. Yeah.
Well, no, I'll tell you the story about Weedjies, because Weedjies, believe it or not, is an anti-weed movie. And if you actually watch it, nobody's actually smoking weed in the film. And that was intentional. I said, I'm not making a stoner movie. I didn't want to make a movie that was like sort of like pro either way. I just wanted to make a movie, and we just had to we tried to have the element written out. And the writer and I were just kind of like, why is there even weed in this movie? Like, it couldn't even. But we had to do it anyway. So this movie. Okay, I'll give you the quick rundown of how this movie was created. Okay, so this movie, was a phone call. I had no intent. I wasn't sitting around thinking about making a movie, a stoner comedy. Nothing. I could give a shit about stoner comedies, stoner anything. I'm not a stoner. I don't give a shit about any of it. So I got this phone call, and Charlie and was like, dude, and I had worked. I mean, Full Moon has the history of Evil Bong.
Yeah.
Right.
Evil Bong versus the fucking, gingered weed, whatever. There's like 11 of these movies, right? And, I cut the original Evil Bong. I was the editor on a lot of that stuff, and did all, worked on those posts and everything else. So I was like, so when I got this phone call, and he had this piece of art. He was doing this thing called the Deadly 10. It was going to be Deadly 10 movies of 10 different directors and whatever. And I was going to do the first one. And it was a piece of art, and it was a pumpkin. It was a pumpkin with I think it was the gingerweed man, or somebody's face was in the pumpkin. One of the things. And I was like, what the fuck is this? Right. Like, and it was called Halloweed Night. And he was like, dude, I got this, and it was like, well, there's a couple ideas. And it was like, we were thinking, well, one, maybe you could do Halloweed Night, and the other one, believe it or not, was Sideshow 2. And I was like, I'm not making Sideshow 2, because I worked on Sideshow 1, and I don't want to make Sideshow 2. I don't want to make 2 anything. I don't like to do sequels. So that's why any of these movies, I say that now, but I don't want to do any sequels. So I was like, well, Halloweed Night. And he was like, dude, well, what about Halloweed Night? And I looked at the thing, and I was like, what the fuck is this? It's a pumpkin with a face. It's called Halloween. It's like, this is ridiculous. It's the most stupidest thing I've ever seen. And there was all these little characters. And I hung up, and I was like, I was actually kind of offended by the whole thing. I was kind of like, why, of all the movies, why Halloweed Night would you want to make? And then, so I was kind of like, and then I called Tom Devlin, our effects guy, who eventually worked the movie. And when I talked to him about it a little bit, he seemed like he was almost like pissed when I started talking to him about it originally. Like, I want to make these movies the thing, and And then, so after Shane and I, the writer, started to talk about it, we're like, I started to think about it, and I was like, I bet you we could make this I bet you if we did it a certain way, this actually could be fun. It could be funny. And we do like, we do more of an 80s thing. The creatures are all like real like John Buechler type creatures and everything. Yeah. So the whole dynamic of this thing switched from this goofy, stupid little weird movie that we were going to do to a whole new concept. So we created we were like, the hell with this face, the pumpkin. We created these little characters called Weedjies, and each one was like these little puppet characters. And then I talked to Tom Devlin again about it, and then he got all excited because it was like, oh wait, we're gonna do like John Buechler creatures, like Ghoulies. I said, dude, forget the title. We're not making Halloweed Night. We're making Ghoulies 4. That's what we're gonna do. And immediately everybody was happy, like, yes, Ghoulies 4, I'm down. So he was down, and the writer was down, and I said, try to write out all the weed. You don't try not to put too much of that in there, and make it so it's like more of a bad thing, you know, where it's kind of like they're you know. So I don't know. It was this whole thing I had to do with it, and so anyway, we created what you've ended up seeing, which was basically like we had the Ouija board where they come out of the Ouija board.
Yep.
And it was just supposed to be a Halloween stoner comedy party movie. And that's what it was. But really what it was Ghoulies Go to Vegas. That's how that's how I saw it in my head. That's how I made it. That's how I directed it. That's how I had everybody else thinking of it. But of course, when it came out as Weedjies Halloweed Night. Because really the Ghoulies, I mean, they're exactly like the real Ghoulies.
Yeah.
They're made in the same way, in the same influence. And it was a fun movie to make. Very fun. I love that movie. I think it's just such a fun movie to make. It's fun to watch for people, especially on Halloween. And it's just kind of like a Gator thing, where it's a fun movie to watch. We're not setting any records here, you know, or anything. We're not making a message movie. We're just having something that you can just have a good time with. So that's kind of how that movie was spawned, from basically like no way to, you know, hey, here we are. We made something pretty fun, and so yeah. So many of these happen like that. So
I'm glad you brought up that, like, you're a fan of 80s movies, because when I watched Weedjies a couple months ago, and I kept telling Sam about it, like, you got to watch this because you'll love this. It's like you said, it's Ghoulies 4. So to hear that you're a fan of 80s horror, I'm like, that makes so much sense, because that's what that movie is. It's an 80s horror movie.
It is. Yeah. Well, the design of it is very 80s. If you notice, you'll probably notice the weird science influence. You'll probably notice just the character influences, as far as how they're you know, the Johnny and Victoria, the two leads, and the way that they have their sort of geek and popular girl kind of relationship, which you know, kind of thing. Just in general, and just the generally the speaking, you know, it was definitely kind of like a little love letter to sort of the 80s puppet movies, I guess, in a way. The fun puppet movies. I'm not talking about, you know, I'm talking about the Ghoulies and the Munchies. You remember the Munchies?
Oh yeah.
Remember that kind of stuff, or the Garbage Pail Kids, you know, that kind of stuff. So that's where that whole deal came from.
That's so cool. You kind of you see that in Bad CGI Gator too, like the 80s horror influence. I was talking to Casey, and I'm like, the tone and the way that like Bad CGI Gator plays out reminds me of Chopping Mall a little bit, which is like one of my all-time favorites. Like, I love Chopping Mall, and like the whole time I'm watching Bad CGI Gator, I'm like, it just, the way it plays out, the archetypes you have, the way just everything happens. I'm just like, it's very clearly made by someone who like loves 80s horror.
It was, you're 100% right. I mean, the archetypes are there, you know. It's just that's what these things are. I mean, these movies are you know, they're entertainment, you know, so they're nothing more. You know, it's not there's no deeper message here, you know, to other than, you know, maybe the Gen Z, you know, thing and Gator, but you know, for like, you know, all the stupid shit that they're doing during the movie with the you know, her filming herself and all the TikTok videos and all that stuff. But you know, it's just it's entertainment. It's a total, like, sit down for an hour and just have a good time. And if you laugh during that hour, great. If you don't, maybe there's something wrong with you. I don't know. But but you should. And if you don't, that's okay. Maybe you can watch, you know, something else and you can laugh too. But
hey, if they don't laugh, they can go watch Oppenheimer or something.
There you go. No, and that's what these things are. I mean, these movies have been being made since the beginning of movies, man. I mean, you know, the stuff in the 50s and 40s and all these
Oh yeah.
films that just have their big concepts, and then they're just entertainment. They're drive-in movies is what they
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and Full Moon has been doing these things forever, and they have that hook, which I like these movies. So I mean I like the sort of drive-in stuff that I don't know, I always have, always will. And
so then I'm curious, how does your origin story with Full Moon begin? How do you get involved with Charlie to begin with? Like you said, you've known him for 15, 20 years. How did that all start?
Well, that's a long story. That's a really long story. But to give you the very quick version of it, I started working for them a long time ago in the web department as a web designer, and that's like a long time ago. And but I was always a filmmaker. But I instead of going in as a PA, I went in as a technical person in the sort of like the web department. And then, it just by the fact that you're just there, you make friends and things. So I made friends with a lot of people, a lot of the filmmakers who were there, and a lot of the other people that were there, and we hung out. One thing led to another. Next thing you know, I was involved in post and helping on movies and so on and so forth, and then eventually directing one. Way back when, and then that kind of spiraled into making more. And Charlie and I ended up we worked so close together that we ended up sort of making movies on a regular basis, where I was actually producing them for him and directing them. Back when they were doing stuff with Blockbuster Video and Hollywood Video. So they would literally give me an idea and say, we need an urban horror movie, and I'm like, okay, what is that? Okay. So I made like Crips, which is basically a vampire stripper movie in the hood. But it did incredibly well. It went right to Blockbuster, made it in 8 days. And we were sort of making these movies to order, where it was literally like, hey, okay, now we need, we were going to make the Grim Rapper back in the day. And
that's a great title.
And I ended up having it written, and I didn't like it. And anyway, and that ended up, believe it or not, I ended up quitting off of that. Ended up getting another movie. He's like, how about he introduced Stuart Gordon came into the picture because the DP Mac Allberg was one of my DPs. He shot two movies for me, and he shot Reanimator, of course, and From Beyond and all those early movies. And he introduced me to Stuart Gordon. Stuart Gordon was fascinated with how I was able to make movies in 8 days. He's just like, how, I don't even like, he's used to big budgets, Fortress, all these things. So I was sitting in his office, and we were just like, he's just like, I don't know how you're making these movies in 8 days, blah, blah, blah. And then eventually, I don't know, he talked to Charlie. This movie, he had this script called Deathbed. And again, a movie that I had no, like, I was just like, what is that? Deathbed. And we were going to do a whole slew of these movies called Stuart Gordon Presents Deathbed. Deathbed was the first one. So I produced it. I directed it. He was the executive producer. Stuart and I were incredibly good friends till the end, because he passed away 3-4 years ago, I think, sadly. But we were very good friends. He taught me how to direct, and I taught him how to do technical. So that was our arrangement. It really was. He was more of he knew how to direct actors. He came from theater. But when it came to like post-production and technical and all that stuff, he was a little bit more like, he needed a little bit more help and advice on some things. And that's kind of where I came in with a lot of that. And I needed a little bit more help with sort of the directing actors thing early on. And so we ended up having a great relationship like that. And we made a movie together, and we almost made many of them together. It was actually going to be several movies, and we were trying to keep making these movies, but it gets complicated, financing, and these were not little movies. These were going to be like $500,000 type movies. Well, on our level, it's $500,000 was still like up to the big people. That's nothing. But Stuart and I are trying to make these things for like $500,000, 300,000 ish kind of, having a star, the whole thing. and they were going to be Stuart Gordon Presents each one. So we were going to do like 10 of them, and we almost made this Plague on an Airplane movie way before COVID and all that stuff. And we were pretty in production on that one, and we were scouting locations and everything. But again, so many movies, that we've tried to make over the years, whether it's Stuart or other people, they don't get made. So when you do get one made, that's good. But for every one that gets made, there's probably 50 that didn't. So, but yeah, it was fun. So yeah, and Stuart, Charlie, again, just having done all these movies for him over the years, and we just have been friends ever since. And he's not the only person I make movies for, but I do enjoy making the full movie stuff when we do them, because they're fun, they're fast. We get them done. Other people take way too long to make movies. So that's what I like about when I do stuff for Full Moon. So we get it done. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's so cool to hear. Especially obviously me and Sam, we're both Full Moon fans, so to hear the insider perspective on how these are made, and your history with Full Moon, and hearing about your work with Stuart Gordon, that's awesome. I gotta ask an outside Full Moon question then. I'm hearing about basically you get hired to do these crazy wacky ideas that Charlie comes up with these weird posters like Halloweed Night and Bad CGI Gator.
Sure.
What's a project that's like a dream project for you? If you could make anything out there, what's Danny Draven's like dream project you want to make?
Western.
A Western. Okay.
That's it.
That's awesome.
That's it.
That's it. Just the Western.
One.
That's awesome.
Yep, Western. Yep.
Do you want it to be an original, or would you want to take on like a classic?
Well, it'd have to be something. It wouldn't be a remake of anything. You need to leave those alone.
Yeah. That's fair.
So it would have to be, it would have to be something original, but it would be a classic, a classically told, I guess.
Right. Like in the style of the
for sure.
Cool.
Have you ever thought of shooting in South Dakota then? Because we know people here, and we're from South Dakota.
Of course.
If you guys ever need a place to shoot, that our South Dakota looks the same as it did 200 years ago. So.
Sure. Well, I lived in Vegas. I lived in Vegas for a while, and it had a little bit of a westerny vibe out there, but that's. You need the right environment, you need the right budget, you need the right story, the right actors, et cetera. But no, to get a hold of an old West town and do something cool, that'd be fun. But Full Moon's done. They did like Oblivion, things like that. But those movies, those movies had they had a little bit of dough going, and they could do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that was way before, it was like 94, 92 or whatever it was back in the day. We go Full Moon's. I could go on forever. There's literally 2 books written on it. I was interviewed in a few of them for the history of the Comes from the Basement. I think it came from the basement.
It came from the video aisle.
It came from the video aisle. Yeah.
I'm about halfway through that book. It's an incredible deep dive.
We did. That's a deep dive. I was like, I saw some interviews where they were bringing up names I'm like, I don't even know if these people are. I know who they were, but I was kind of like, it was like old names. So no, there's like this, like it's like a ridiculous history and with it, but no, I've been with them, been doing stuff for them a long time. Again, Charlie and I are very good friends, have always been doing stuff together for literally 20 years. And Stuart and I wish we could have done more, but we were always trying to get things made after that, but it just, they unfortunately, they were good scripts too, man. And that was the thing about Stu. He had a talent for finding talent, talented writers. So some of the stuff that we were looking at making were simple. They were simple movies. They weren't complex, but they were good. They were really good scripts, well written. but they needed the right, budget and actors, star
Yeah.
actors and stuff. And back in that time when we were doing it and stuff. But so that was fun. But and then there's been many others since then, I guess. But so yeah,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the Western. I hope that one day that gets to come to fruition for you, because it sounds like that's something that you're obviously passionate about. You have Western posters
Oh yeah,
right up behind your head. So I hope one day that happens, whether Charlie somehow finds $1 million budget to give you to make a Western, or it happens outside the full moon system. I mean, I want to see your take on that.
Yeah, it would be.
Oh, yeah.
I would like that. I would definitely love that. Yeah, it would be great. But in the meantime, we make. I mean, I make a lot of different kind of movies. There's nothing really in particular that, like I mean, I've already directed another film since Gator. We went right into it, and I was gone in California for 2 weeks, and directed a whole nother movie. It's a completely different kind of movie. I don't think I'm really allowed to say too much about it right now, but basically it's more of a serious thriller, so it's it's not parody, it's a total like serious movie now. And then
Nice.
probably after this I'll go back to doing something other. I like comedy the best, I would say, of all of it. And so anything that's got a funny angle to it, generally I'll pretty interested in doing. That's why Gator.
Yeah.
That's why Gator was kind of like it was. I mean, this movie is like super low budget, dude. It's like no. I mean, this is not a movie that had money. Okay, so you got to understand, this is a low budget movie that we shot in 5 days in Cleveland in freezing, out in the middle of nowhere.
Cleveland at this time of year, yeah.
And it was cold. It was funny, but I got the cast that I liked, and the cast was really great. I really enjoyed all of them. They were all great to work with. So much fun. It's comedy. You need actors that can really deliver on their lines and everything too. But the timing and everything. But they all kind of inhabited these characters real easily, like the bros, the bros, bro. So, but all that stuff was a complete goof and completely fun to do.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite scenes in the movie isn't even like a CGI Gator scene. It's when the couple is out on the grass and they're looking out at the lake and they're having the conversation about, is this just frogs getting high? Like, I rewound that scene because I was laughing so hard. I was like, I have to watch that again. That was too funny. It's such a good exchange.
It was actually longer than that, and I had to cut it down.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They went on for a while, and then I was like, oh, that's a little long. So we ended up cutting it like half because they were saying all kinds of like stupid stuff. Like they were like, oh my God, like look at the stars. There's my star there. And I mean, just like complete airhead conversation. And then he's like, yeah, fuck yeah, yeah. And then we laugh, but we all know these people,
Oh yeah.
And that's why they're so relatable. People, you can say what you will about Gator, but man, at the end of the day, you watch that movie and you're like, my friend's got a friend just like that. Or, I know a girl that works at Starbucks. She's just like that. So they're all around,
Oh yeah.
And we like to to have a little fun every now and then with some of that stuff. So yeah.
As we're going to kind of wrap this thing up here. I got 2 more questions. Sure. For Bad CGI Gator. One, I gotta know, what's your favorite part of shooting this movie? Like you said, you had 5 days. The cast was awesome. I mean, they knew exactly what kind of movie you guys were making. They knew what kind of characters they are. You, as the director, what was your favorite part of shooting this?
Rapping.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I had fun making it. The favorite part of shooting, honestly, like a movie like this, I can't say this for every movie because they're all different. But generally the comedies that I make, are always fun. Especially when I have picked the cast myself, and I like, everybody works
Mm-hmm.
together really great. So I mean, like every day was fun to do, every day was fun to make a new joke, or, because a lot of that stuff is in there. It's not even written in the script. We just, I would improv, with them. I like to let actors give them their space, and I like to let them improv a lot. So, we were improvising left and right, and they were doing some of the funniest stuff. So that for me was the funnest part, is the improv, letting them kind of like, okay, this is what we're doing. You're gonna, okay, like the montages and stuff. It's like, we were just making it up. I was like, okay, just like he's exercising it. So he would be like doing the thing, and he would be saying ridiculous stuff, and everybody, and we're all laughing at the monitors. I'm like, okay, great, cut. And then I would have them do something else, and then we'd all start laughing. But a lot of that was the actors just improving and having fun, and me giving them some word or two to play with, and then they would do it. But fighting, I mean, the katana fight was probably the funnest one to do.
Yeah.
He Ben, our lead actor that played Chad, kind of worked him out maybe a little too hard doing all that, because he's jumping up in the air, he's got all that stuff on, it's one take after the next, and so he was like breathe, trying to catch his breath all the time, and I was working him out pretty hard doing it, because there's nothing there. It's just there's like a sandbag, and all like a blank frame. I'm like, okay, he's coming at you. He's there. He's at your feet. He's nipping. So I'm like yelling out stuff at him, and he's just reacting to it all, not knowing what it'll look like. None of them did. So I'd say like the katana scene was probably one of the funnest ones to do for me.
Yeah, and it comes off so much fun as an audience member, how that scene plays out. So what you guys did was perfect. Last question then. If people are going to watch Bad CGI Gator, it's out on the Full Moon app. Obviously, this movie, just by the title alone, has already gotten a lot of like people talking online, because it's like, oh, that sounds like a Full Moon title. We got to check that out.
Right.
So if people are going to watch this movie, you, Danny, what would you pick as a movie to follow this up with as a double feature? Any movie, whether it's one of yours or any movie in the history of cinema.
Man, I mean, look, I would say watch this movie, and then you can watch Weedjies Halloweed Night, just because.
Yeah.
And then I would say watch Zombievers right after that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Because that movie's fucking. I love that movie. That movie's great.
Yep.
I think that movie's just. It's again another one. It's one of these ridiculous like title concept, but it was fun, man. I had fun. I love the movie. I had a lot of fun watching it, and I think anytime you have fun watching a movie, especially something as ridiculous as like the title was like Zombievers, like what is this? And you watch it and you're like, you know what, I like this movie. Same thing with Gators, the same kind of thing. It's just kind of like Bad CGI Gator, what is this? And then you watch it, and if you like it, great, so it's just pure fun drinking movie. If you want to drink, you don't have to drink. Some people don't but yeah, it's just meant to have a good time, and those would maybe be the two, maybe the trilogy for the night.
I love it.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome.
It's a great trio of movies.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a perfect triple feature. You get some wild animal attacks movie, and you get some throwback Ghoulies.
And it's always funny to me. It's always funny to me when people watch these, like they like reviewers and stuff. They like to sort of zero in on like, oh well, they start picking things out. It's like with Bad CGI Gator, it's kind of funny because it's kind of like, yes, the movie's called Bad CGI Gator. Like what? Like what are you going to pick out?
Yeah.
You have a bulletproof title.
A bulletproof title, and I think some people go into it thinking like, I don't know, maybe they're thinking it's going to be different than it is, and generally they come out getting laughed. I mean, I remember like there's all these like trailer reaction videos and things like that. It's always funny to watch those trailer reaction videos where you're like, okay, as soon as that gator floats, somebody's gonna laugh, and then every time some of the gators when they're like they start laughing. I remember one guy had the paws and he's just like starts cracking up. And I was like, so every time I see somebody laugh at the trailer, then I laugh. And if I laugh, we're all having a good time.
Mhm.
And that's why we did it. And again, we made this during a strike. So there was an actor's strike, and nobody was working, man. Like nobody was really working. So here we are making this little movie, and we're still, still just out kind of having fun with it, so yeah. Anyway, it was a lot of fun to do, and I'm glad people are having fun with it. So
yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, this has been so much fun to talk about.
Yeah.
I mean, not just bad CGI Gator, because I mean, we've gushed about it on how much, again, just fun the movie is, but hearing your entire story, it's been awesome. And thank you so much for coming on. This was a great chat. Let's do it again when this new movie comes out. I want to get the serious side of your work with this.
Okay. Well, I can tell you, I've only made, really, I've made a lot of different films, but I think the last more serious film that I made was probably Patient 7, which was with Michael Ironside. He starred in it. I don't know if you've seen that one, but
I haven't.
Now you should check that one out.
I was gonna say adding to the list right now.
100%.
Patient 7, and it has Michael Ironside, has Grace Van Dien. That was her first horror movie with me.
No way.
I gave her her first horror movie role in that.
That's so cool.
She's on, awesome. And she's huge now, on Stranger Things and all that.
Yeah.
But when I made that film, she was 18, and she was in the audition room. I'm like, who is that? And I was like, wow, she's really good. And I was like, we got to cast her. And it was like, that's Casper's daughter. And I was like, no kidding. And then we had that was Grace's first horror movie. It was, Michael Ironside, of course, we all know from Total Recall. And
oh yeah.
But no, that was more of the serious side. If you want to see something that's a little less quirky, weird, and a little bit more straight horror, I would suggest that one. And it's on all the platforms. Just type it in Patient 7 Michael Ironside, you'll see it.
Oh hell yeah!
Sweet.
And, so yeah.
All right, anyway. That's going on the list right away. Knowing me and Sam, that's going to be a watch coming up very soon for us. So, Danny, thank you again, man. This has been awesome. We got to, like I said, we got to do this again. So,
all right. Well, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. It's always fun talking about movies. So, all right.
Yeah.
Take care, guys. Bye bye.
Thanks.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal, providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.